Perhaps you're looking for better access or guaranteed support for your child, and the idea of a special educational needs coordinator doing that comes with its perks, because the expectation of the SENCO is that they will have it covered. But is this really better? In this video, I want to talk about my own experiences and the pros and cons of assuming that a SENCO is your friend, and the cost that it would have to you and your child in the long run. So what I learned in my own experiences of advocating for my son who has autism and other neurodiverse needs and a medical condition is that a SENCO is not your friend. And here is why. When I started on this special educational needs journey, I recognised that I was in a very vulnerable position. I was in the position where I was acquiring new information. My son was recently diagnosed. There was information that I didn't have at hand, that I didn't know where to get. And in terms of him starting his education, my understanding of what that would look like wasn't certain at that point. I don't know about you, but I'm of a generation where a special educational needs coordinator did not exist during my time within education. So to understand what that role was or what it implied or what it did, I had no idea. When I was introduced to a SENCO for the first time, it was very clear to me how much personal information and how much hope I had in this particular person of achieving an education for my son in a way that would fit in mainstream education. And in our interactions, there was a lot of exchange of personal information, daily information about what we were experiencing at home, and as well as what he was experiencing through the day. And it really did feel like the connection was very much of a friendship, because I had this sense of feeling that I let a lot of my autonomy and agency and independence to make decisions as a parent in that particular SENCO's hand. And to be able to do that and feel comfortable with that, I felt that there was a sense of loyalty, leaving me feeling content that I could leave my son at the school gate. But the problem came when I wanted to provide some feedback, I wanted to make some suggestions. I disagreed with some of the choices that were made in terms of how he would access his education. Then I noticed that all of a sudden the idea of adopting the SENCO as a friendship wasn't working in this circumstance, because I was left with frustration and guilt, basically feeling in a state of disempowerment. And I'm very aware that this is not the case for most SENCOs out there, but there are many that do have this experience. That's why I want to share the reasons why it doesn't help to adopt the identity of a friend towards a SENCO, but instead look at it in a different way, which I'm going to discuss later. So as mentioned, the pros of thinking of the SENCO as a friend would be that you would get access and also that there is a level of loyalty. But what I found was that the cons outweighed the pros, and the cons were that friendship cannot be sustained like that for a long time. As we know, in this particular industry of special educational needs, the turnover of staff, of teaching assistants and teachers and SENCOs are quite high, and these are for external reasons that are not in the control of a teacher or a SENCO and not in control of a parent or the child. So no friendship can guarantee that that could be possible to sustain. A SENCO in the beginning may be responding to your emails quite frequently, and then they may not be responding to your emails, or perhaps that they're not around as and when you need it in the appropriate time, or that you might find yourself as a parent having to lose it because that expectation of what your friendship was is just not there. And therefore there's a cost to your child in terms of what support they receive, and then also the negative impact to you and your family. So when looking at it in detail, the main reasons why I feel a SENCO are definitely not your friends is, firstly and mainly, they are professionals. They are a facilitator, a vehicle between your child accessing support, whether that's from the local authority or whether that's from therapies or whether that's from information from wherever, and it's their role to ensure that your child receives that within the environment that they are currently in. And the benefits of not seeing them as a friend means that there's an equal exchange of information. You know that that's their role. There's no loyalty to expect that they can consistently do that. And in that, you'll find that the communication flows because there's more honesty and integrity in terms of who they are and what they do. Another thing is that it is conditional. Conditional in the sense of they are set to frameworks in the way that they work. They are also set to their environment. So they have to cater for every single person in that environment. And that's something that they would need to consider instead of being perhaps loyal to any one particular child. Also, there are privacy laws in terms of what they can and cannot say in terms of exchanging private information. So when you detach the friendship, seeing them as professional allows you to recognise it for what it is. And also it eliminates that fear of being known as that annoying parent, which makes it more likely for you to want to speak out because you know that it's not personal. And also to recognise that it is short-lived. As mentioned before, the turnover of SENCOs can be quite high. So you can't guarantee that the SENCO will be there for the whole duration of your child's experience at primary school or secondary school or further education, because that actually makes it harder because you're expecting that same level of support continually, and when it's not there, it does have an impact on how you feel. Am I saying that a SENCO being professional rather than being a friend is a bad thing? No, definitely not. If anything, I think it actually helps to be able to stay focused in terms of what it is that you're there to do, what it is that you were there to achieve in terms of guiding the process and supporting your child through their education. And I recognise that the best way of achieving that is not to see your SENCO or teacher or a teaching assistant or someone from the local authority as a friend, but more seeing them in a sense of you've got great rapport with them and you have appreciation. So appreciation for their integrity as an individual and what they do, how they show up daily for your child, the communication that you have between each other, and in terms of the honesty about whether something can be done and perhaps making some suggestions or signposting information. So there's an equal flow and there's a professionalism about that. So there's no attachments and expectations that it needs to be done, and if you didn't hold on to this particular friendship, it couldn't happen. Because if appreciation isn't there, it then becomes very clear the hurdles and the setbacks that you and your child will be experiencing whilst working with that particular SENCO. And it's not so much about SENCOs in general, but maybe perhaps that this particular individual. When there is rapport, there's a harmless interaction where there's an understanding of each other's feelings and the communication is smooth. And knowing that you've got good rapport allows you to feel that the interaction is not conditional, it's not based on loyalty where perhaps you scratch their back, they scratch yours. And I hope that by sharing my experiences has been useful and allows you to look at the bigger picture when it comes to interacting with professionals. So why not take a look at some of my other videos and think of subscribing? But for now, keep doing what you're doing, stay focused, stay empowered and keep creating progress. Thank you for listening.